Empowered people make informed decisions that lead to living a life without regret. This is Sarah Kaki and Shauna Woods from Atlanta Divorce Law Group, and this is the Happily Ever After Divorce Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Happily Ever After Divorce Podcast. I'm Sarah Kaki with Atlanta Divorce Law Group, and I'm joined by our very own managing partner, Shauna Woods. Shauna, we are going to discuss a topic that so many of our clients want to know about at the onset of their divorce case, which is, do courts prefer moms over dads? How gender neutral is the custody decision-making process?
That is a question we get asked a lot. And
Yes.
It should be absolutely custody. It should be gender neutral, period.
So let's go through that, because that wasn't always the case, right? Just to give a quick debrief on custody law overall, there used to be a time in America where the tender age philosophy was the custody arrangement, meaning when a child is of a younger age, of a more tender age, they preferred the mom to take care of the child. And there was really socio-political reasons for that, is because this was the pre-70s era where most moms were staying at home, and we were mainly single parent income households. So the father was the one working, from a stereotypical standpoint of describing the evolution of this. And the mother was the one at home taking care of the younger ones. And it's really in the 70s where the tender age principle kind of got knocked on its head, when more women entered the workforce and both parents' income was needed to maintain the household. And then the socioeconomics changed so that the best interest standard came in. Tell us a little bit about what is the best interest standard, why it's meant to be gender neutral, and then we can talk about what the standard is and what do we think is happening when actual human beings are applying these rules and laws to the divorce cases.
I mean, the law versus reality.
Exactly, the law versus reality. I love that.
Well, what the law is we're supposed to look at what is in the best interest of the children, and that is supposed to be gender neutral. And they look at so many different factors when we're talking about who should the children live with primarily, or should the children be 50% with one person and 50% with the other parent. So a lot of these factors include who was doing the primary parenting during the marriage, who can facilitate, and this is a big one, who can facilitate a relationship with the other parent and the child, even though they're in their custody. So they're looking about, making sure that you're making sure visits happens, making sure telephone calls happen, encouraging your child to have a wonderful time, not just go see the other parent, but have a wonderful time and very positive about it. They're looking for stability, right? Can you provide a home that is stable? And by that, we're looking for not necessarily rigid, but a schedule, right? And who has been involved with their teachers, who's been involved with their medical providers, who's been taking them to extracurriculars, right. Who is the person who can continue to do that outside of the marriage?
So I'm going to give you both scenarios of the dads that we represent, their fear when they come at the onset and they're worried about losing their children, and their fear of courts are not favorable to dads, and then the side of the mother who has their own concerns about how their gender will play into this custody arrangement. Because the reality of it is, this is the standard that Shauna just described, but we still have people applying these rules. So at the end of the day, if there are some biases in whoever's resolving the case, that could affect somebody's case. Have you experienced this?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very common saying that a good lawyer knows the law and a great lawyer knows the judge.
Right.
And if you know which way your judge leans or how they feel about certain things, then you're able to properly advise your client. And we all come with our own internal biases, whether they're subconscious or conscious.
So one of the big fears the fathers have is, let's say if we have the very stereotypical classic 1950s family model, which is still very common in our society now, where we have a high earning male who provides for the family, and the mother who gave up her career or her profession or her education in order to support the family. So she has been the one that's been the primary caretaker for the children. She has been the one that's been involved with the school and with the doctors and everything. And the father has been very busy providing and has been able to enjoy more of the kids on the weekends or in the evenings. Now the father comes to us scared to death that he's not going to see his children and that the court is not going to favor him because he's the father. How difficult will it be for that father to fight for an equal chance in custody against that mother?
Well, I guess what we have to first describe is what is an equal chance? What is it exactly you're looking for? Because here in the state of Georgia, what we see a lot of times with the non-custodial parent or the parent who they don't live with mostly is an extended weekend, usually like a Thursday night through a Monday morning, so that they are getting a lot of school time and some weekend time, and then usually an overnight in the off week as well, so that they are not necessarily getting 50-50 custody, but they are getting a significant amount of time. That's really expanded from when I first started working in Georgia 20 years ago, and it used to be very Friday to Sunday, every other weekend, some holiday period of time. So it was very limited about 20 years ago, but that really has expanded. So when I talk to with the fathers is, well, what exactly are you looking for? And the kind of custody that I have described sometimes really does work for them because of their work schedules. A lot of the high earners travel, right, in their living. And as long as they're able to know that they can go to the extracurriculars and attend the school events.
And they can be in the decision-making process.
Yes, and involved in the decision-making process, then they're not necessarily looking for a 50-50 custodial relationship. And as long as they're getting that time, they're satisfied, right?
So let's talk about now, post-COVID, with hybrid work models being available, people having to go in the office less, having a lot more flexibility. I am seeing more and more of fathers that say, this was my work schedule because we were one family unit and it worked. But if I could rearrange things. I hear this from so many fathers. I could rearrange things. I could take a different job that would allow me to be home more. I could take a job where I'm working from home a lot more. Do I have a chance if I wasn't the primary caretaker all this time, but I was the primary source of income? If I go get a home where I would have a room for each child and, I provided all that stability for them, do I have a chance to get 50-50 or primary?
I think primary is hard in those situations. And I get this, and I get it from both sides, because a lot of times when we're talking about these very traditional relationships, the wife who had the privilege of staying home with her children, right, because she had somebody in the home who was supporting her financially, now is probably going to have to go back out into the workforce. Right. And whether that is going to be a work from home situation or actually work in an office or somewhere else situation, what you're looking for or what you're looking at really is now they're both shifting roles. Both roles are shifting, and a good, co-parenting relationship is going to be able to work through those shifts and say, what is in the best interest of our children moving forward, not necessarily what was it looking back. Back does inform us who was the primary caregiver and who was, taking care of the children, but things are changing, right? Georgia is not a state in which defaults to 50-50 custody, and I cannot emphasize that enough. That's been rejected several times.
Right.
So you do see some people agreeing to do a 50-50 custody, either a week on or some version thereof of a 50-50 custody. But most of the time when a male comes in and says, I can change my schedule, the first thing I said, great, do it now.
Right.
If what you're saying is you can do it, then do it now and start being there for the children now so that we can start a precedent,
right,
showing that you have the capability to do that. Because conversely, what I hear from women, he can't do it.
So let's talk about the female fear, right? This hypothetical that we're kind of running with right now of that very classic family structure. The woman's fear that I hear when we have a female client in front of us who hasn't worked and has been dependent financially on their spouse to bring in, and that was a family-made decision so that the children would have the benefit of a stay-home mom. is now terrified that the court is going to not side with her or favor with her because she may not be able to afford to go live in a home that has the amenities that dad's home may have. She may not be able to afford to live in the school zone that the kids are currently in. Of course, we see some scenarios that are the most favorable, which is when that happens, there is enough financial assets and money in the marital balance sheet that we know she's going to be able to have her own household that is safe and clean and secure in a good school district where the kids currently are and dad is as well. That's ideal, right? But that's not where a lot of people find themselves. They do find themselves that now that pie has to be cut in half, and even though mom's going to get a division of the assets, she's going to get some equity, she is going to get possibly some alimony and child support, that may still not cut it to move into a home in that school zone, and it may not cut it to have the size of home that the children used to be in, and she probably has to go back to work. And when you first get back into the workforce, you don't have the kind of flexibility that the person who has built a career, has built some sort of a status for themselves at their job or in their industry has. You're starting from scratch. So you may have to take on multiple jobs, and we see that a lot. That's her fear.
It is. And it's not an unvalid fear. I think that both parties really do come at it from their perspective. And it's wonderful when both parties are really putting the children first and thinking, okay, what's good for the children? Ideally, it is good for children to have both mother and father involved in their lives and continuing going forward and working together in a co-parenting relationship. This is why we do see spousal support in those situations that we're talking about, and some child support. Even in true 50-50 custodial relationships, the higher earner is going to pay some amount of child support to the lower earner.
Right.
So the courts do try to even the playing field in that regard, but it is not long-term spousal support, right? It is a temporary fix to get someone back on their feet and into the workforce. So those fears, they're real on both sides. And being able to work through those fears and walk through them, right, together, hopefully we can reach that magic point of what works for this particular family, because each family is so different from everyone else's.
So now let's get into some more what I'd like to call like possibly ugly facts.
Okay.
What's forgivable behavior from a mom versus forgivable behavior from a dad? So this is where I think a lot of the gender biasness comes in. And it's cultural. And the court system is run by people who are a reflection of our culture. What do we forgive moms for? What do we forgive dads for? A lot of times you hear dads say, and I think this is true with certain judges, they expect the dad to be at 110, where they expect the mom to be at a 90%. I also think there's judges out there who see something, they have such a high standard of what it means to be a mom, that they see one peck of something that doesn't look perfect, and they just think this is a terrible woman. Can you run me through some facts or cases that you've had where you're like, man, this is going to be hard for anybody to swallow for you as a mother having done this, but maybe if the dad had done this, we wouldn't have necessarily dinged them on it, or vice versa?
Yes. And again, it goes really back into who is your judge and what is your county, because vastly different here in the state of Georgia. I have seen judges really come down hard on women who have committed adultery.
Right.
Even if it has not affected the children whatsoever. They had no idea it occurred. It was probably a symptom of the divorce, not the cause of the divorce. But because they committed adultery, I've seen them lose their kids.
They get the scarlet A.
But that doesn't happen to men. They still get to see their kids, even if they've committed multiple counts of adultery.
Right.
So I do think that is a factor that you really have to be aware of. Another thing is addiction. You do see a lot. We're very careful with addiction because addiction is a horrible disease. It can drastically affect your ability to parent your children, acknowledging that. But when it's moms who are addicted, the courts come down on them 10 times harder than when it's dads.
Wow. Now, what about this scenario? I think this has a lot of gender biases in it. You hear a lot from male clients who have a emotionally unstable wife who keeps coming at them physically. And they are scared to death to do anything to defend themselves because next up is a restraining order and they go to jail, versus if the same behavior was seen from the man, police would have been called and a restraining order would have been in place.
Yeah.
How much does the court punish the dad who got aggressive, whether verbally or physically, with the mom versus the mom who gets physical or verbally abusive towards the dad?
I've got a case just like this right now. When it is the woman, the mom, who becomes physically aggressive with her husband, the courts almost brush it under the rug. They do not take it as seriously. I don't know if it's because of the size difference, the biases that we come from.
Yeah.
But I am seeing that even protection order courts are not taking that as seriously, and they should. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some courts out there who really do get it, some judges who really get it from the beginning. And quite frankly, if she's going to be abusive to the husband, she may be also abusive to the children as they get older and develop their own minds. Right? When it is a male who is abusive, then I do think the courts put in more protections for the woman and the children. And I think that's just a mental place that we go in our head, is that he was supposed to be the provider and the protector, right? Therefore, he failed at his job if he is abusive. But he's also supposed to be the provider and the protector, and he failed at his job if he's also being abused.
Wow. That's a tricky place for a man to be in.
It really is, and it's completely unfair because there are women in this society who do have very abusive tendencies, both physical and mental and emotional.
Right. Tender age.
Yes.
That's where we first started. Of children of a certain age, if they're young and still infants, toddlers, they're considered to still be under the care of their mother. I understand it for a nursing mom. If you have a child that's nursing, does the tender age still play a part?
Oh, I do think so. Absolutely. Infants are a whole other ballywig in and of itself. They do have the tender age doctrine still very deep ingrained when we're talking about newborns. But they want to very quickly get their father involved because they have that newborns, when they first see you, right, you don't exist unless you are actually in their presence. So the fathers need bonding time. So we see different custodial arrangements where the fathers may have everyday time with an infant for a couple of hours, right? But it is around nursing time, and mother is going to have primary, care of this infant. As they get older, we are seeing very young children being exchanged for longer periods of time.
If you had a mother in front of you that said, Shauna, I think I'm done nursing, I'm going to go to formula, but I want to have primary custody, would you, you laugh, but we get these questions, would you say, hold the door, let's keep nursing until we get our custody arrangement in place?
I would not. I'm laughing because I've had this case. I was on the opposite side. I represented the father. The mother was
the child being nursed up to the age of 10?
Yeah, the mother, the child was nearly 3. And look, that's not a judgment call I'm going to be making, but the child had been weaned. And we started the divorce, and all of a sudden the child was nursing again. And we're like, that's awful convenient.
I'm having Game of Thrones flashbacks.
It's really awful convenient, right? So I don't think those type of games are good to play with your children and their needs, right? I think that opens up a lot of confusion for a child at that age.
But does a mother in all seriousness, a mother who never started nursing, because that's a very personal decision, and did get right off the bat use formula or whatnot, they're using formula, did they have a disadvantage to use a tender age argument?
Not really. I don't think so. Because again, we're talking about a newborn.
Yes.
Right? And we're talking about separating a newborn from its mother. And I think the gut feeling of most people is no, a newborn should remain with its mother vast majority of the time. Now, that's not always true, but and I've had cases where I've gotten custody of very young children, 1 and below, for fathers. But again, most of the time that's because mom had an addiction issue,
yes,
or there was other issues with mom that made her not a suitable parent.
You know, one gender biasness that comes up in negotiating custody that personally bothers me because I think it sets women back is this societal pressure or stigma that women feel that they should be going after primary custody.
Yes.
It's almost, you see it a lot where you have a working woman and she actually was not the primary caretaker. The father very much was when you learn more about it, and it's worked. She's done fantastic. He's done fantastic for the kids. The kids are thriving. And there is something about when it comes down to it, it is very emotionally hard for that woman to accept the fact that she should not ask for primary. And I don't know how much of that is actually what she really wants versus wanting to be seen in a certain light, because it is awkward in our society for a mother, still with the best interest of the child standard today. It is still awkward for a mother to say, I'm okay being the non-custodial parent.
Even beyond awkward, I think society frowns upon women who do not have primary custody of their children, and they view them as quote unquote bad moms. When in reality, like you said, what they had in their marriage and what worked for them in their marriage is she went out and earned, and the husband stayed home or had a lesser paying job and lesser,
or he was a better caretaker,
or he was just a better caretaker.
Yeah.
So I do think, and I tell men this as they walk in the door and they say, I've always been the primary parent. Let me show you how I've always been the primary parent. I said, we're going to have a problem, not because of the court, but because she's not going to be able to let go of being told she's a bad mom.
And that's the part that, whether it's the system has to do a better job or it's just a matter of awareness, it's not about being a bad mom. It's just about the fact that this was your unique contribution to the children was different than his unique contribution. Some parents contribute through the resources, the experiences, the life goals and settings and inspiration they set for their children, and some parents contribute more with their actual physical time. Now, I do think physical time is huge and matters a lot, but they're in parenting, in co-parenting, there's a give and take there.
Absolutely. And there is nothing wrong with recognizing that the other parent has more of a capability or more of a personality to be a primary caretaker of your children. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that you recognize that and you're willing to say, yes, my children should be with you a little bit more because
right.
You can provide whatever it is, the stability, the emotional capability, whatever it is.
Or you're better at getting them through the schooling, or you're
right.
better through getting them through their special needs that they have.
Exactly.
It's completely just a personality-based decision.
It really is. And I do have statistics.
Oh, of course you do. Go for it.
So, and it was interesting because I looked this up, and Georgia is pretty low, actually, when we're talking about primary custody for men. And I was surprised because in my career, I've been very successful gaining primary custody for men when they really did need it. But Georgia, 23.5% of men have primary custody post-divorce. Yeah, it's a very low statistic. We're number 47 in the states of men having primary custody. Now, there are several states that have 50% of men and women having primary custody.
Is that California?
No, surprisingly not. But New Mexico's on the list.
You just had to throw that statistics in.
Really did.
Yeah, so Shauna's from New Mexico, if you didn't catch that.
And I do think it's a wonderful thing. But another one's Florida.
Florida's 50-50?
Florida's 50-50. And you know what I think? And I would have to go look this up because I don't know for sure. But some state legislatures have said, we think what's in the best interest of the children is to start out at assuming 50-50 is best interest, and then let you guys tell us why it's not.
Didn't Arizona do that a few years ago as well? I think I had seen that somewhere.
Arizona is not on the list, but Nevada is.
Okay.
So, and Arizona may have tried to go in that direction. And I do think that's an interesting play on it, because when we're talking about women who have to go back into the workforce, it is so much easier to get back into the workforce when you have substantial help with the child rearing. I've
actually told a lot of our female clients that I understand right now it is just hard imagining not getting to see your children every day. But I'm telling you, between being a single parent and having to work, you will also need some me time. Just some time to restore yourself and make yourself present for those children again.
Absolutely. And speaking as someone who raised my daughter on my own, it would have been wonderful to have some time just to say, hey, I do need some me time, and step away, because you're a much better parent when you take that time to recharge.
Yes.
And you can't do that if you have the kids with you all the time.
And it makes the kids feel like they're a burden.
Exactly.
Thank you, Shauna. That was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Happily Ever After Divorce Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, go to atlantadivorcelawgroup.com/resources.